The next essay that you may want to consider writing for the first essay, the choice essay, which is due next week, is going to be cause and effect. To get us started talking about cause and effect, I want to play this video.
People with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension. But no, by all means.
Cause and effect, a la shmup. Just because one thing happens after another doesn't necessarily mean that the first thing caused the second.
He tripped me. Did you see it?
Your friends keep trying to tell you that, but you refuse to stop intentionally spilling grape juice on the carpet until the Red Sox lose.
Dude, my shoes.
On the other hand, if you spill grape juice on one of the actual Red Sox outfielders, then there may actually be some cause and effect at play. Using cause and effect within an essay can be a great way to show how a situation has progressed or regressed. By showing your reader how a war caused a depression, or how the shifting of plates at the Earth's surface causes earthquakes, a reader can start to make connections they might not have made if all you had done is dump a bunch of random facts in their lap.
That's my spot.
Examining cause and effect allows us to think outside the events themselves and contemplate their context. However, be careful not to confuse causation with correlation. Just because the two things are related, it doesn't mean that one caused the other.
You're not the cause of me.
Yes.
The last 3 times your Uncle Bertrand has come to visit, there's been a full moon. But unless Uncle Bertie is seeking shelter to avoid one of his episodes, it's probably just an odd coincidence. Cause and effect is only when one thing happens and a second thing happens as a direct result of the first thing. Like when your mom caught Uncle Bertrand going through the trash, so then she sent him home. Or when Uncle Bertrand tore up the living room carpet, so your mom made him pay to get it fixed. Or when one of your neighbors dropped by and Uncle Bertrand barked ferociously at him, so your mom fit him with a choke collar. Maybe there is something to that whole full moon thing.
Yes.
Okay. So, cause and effect is only when one thing happens as a direct result of the first thing. In a cause and effect essay, just like the others, you start with an introduction paragraph. You'll end with a conclusion. Now, there are several different options for how you may want to organize your cause and effect essay. And in this case, unlike in compare and contrast, the options vary depending on the type of topic you want to talk about. Now, I want to emphasize once again that cause and effect, in order to demonstrate cause and effect, you have to be able to show how one thing leads to the next thing. For example, and I don't want this to be controversial, but for example, smoking a cigarette does not automatically lead to death. In fact, someone could be a smoker for many, many years and die from a car wreck. So, smoking the cigarette itself is not what leads to death. Smoking the cigarette can lead to other issues like lung failure or emphysema or things like that. And those could then cause problems which could lead to death. So, that is an important point that I want to make. That if you're going to do cause and effect, you need to make sure that the effects you're talking about are directly related to the cause you're speaking of. Now, there are ways to do this. The first potential organization is if you have one cause and many effects. one cause and many effects. So you would have cause A, and that, or just cause in this case, and that leads to effect A, effect B, and effect C. So I think in this case, you can easily imagine that you would spend one paragraph talking about the effect A, one paragraph talking about effect B, and one paragraph talking about effect C. I've been using the example of smoking a cigarette. So smoking a cigarette could have health effects like emphysema or bronchitis or other things like that. So health would be the first paragraph I would dedicate to that essay. The second paragraph I would maybe dedicate to the financial effects. Smoking is a costly habit. So that paragraph would be dedicated to financial concerns. My third paragraph then would be considered social concerns. It impacts your looks, your teeth, smell, things like that. And I'm not digging on smokers. I know many people who do, but we all know that those are some of the actual effects that happen when smoking a cigarette. So it makes it for an easy topic. You can do this. I mean, one cause and many effects. The effects of overeating, the effects of having a baby, the effects of having a baby while a teenager, the effects of any important decision or life-changing event. Really, it's all up for grabs. The next option would be if you have many causes, but only one effect. Many causes and one effect. So let's see, you'd have cause A, cause B, and cause C, and they all lead up to effect. So you would spend a paragraph talking about cause A, one paragraph talking about cause B, and one paragraph talking about cause C. These could be topics like everything that led up to the shutdown that we experienced in 2020. Everything that led up to a particular decision that you made. For example, to everything that led you up to the decision to go to junior college before going to university. Or everything that led up to a momentous occasion or a divorce or just anything like that. There's lots of potential possibilities there that you could talk about. Many causes and one effect. The third option for cause and effect is if you have a chain reaction. Now, we just talked about a sort of a chain reaction when we talked about smoking, because you can have cause A, which leads to effect A. Effect A leads to, cause B. Cause B leads to effect B. Effect B becomes cause C, which leads to effect C. So we talked about this momentarily a moment ago when we talked about smoking could lead to emphysema. Emphysema could lead to lung failure. Lung failure could lead to death or something of that nature. I don't know all the medical things of that nature, but you could look it up. One of my favorite chain reaction stories that I actually read recently was a woman who was talking about trying to clean her junk drawer. Now, here in the South, we have junk drawers, and everybody knows what it is. It's usually a drawer in the kitchen. It has scissors, tape, staples, thumbtacks. Mine has a screwdriver. It's where we keep our coupons. Sometimes an important bill that needs to be paid gets thrown in there. It's just where you keep a variety of things that you need on the daily. I found out recently that up north, they don't have junk drawers. They keep their scissors in the desk. And so that was a revelation for me. But at any rate, we know what the junk drawer is, and we know it's usually cluttered and it usually falls apart. And when you pull it open, there's papers and all kind of stuff that kind of explodes at you. So this woman was talking about cleaning out her junk drawer. And she said she went out to clean her junk drawer and she found a button. And this button she knew belonged to her favorite pair of pants. So she went into the laundry room to find her favorite pair of pants, only to discover that they were dirty. So she started doing laundry. As she was doing laundry, she decided that she needed to take the clean clothes up to her daughter's playroom. When she went up to her daughter's playroom, she decided she needed to pick up and organize the toys that were in there. When she started organizing the toys, she decided she needed to make a box for donation. As she started to make a box for donation, it occurred to her that she had some other things in the garage that needed to be organized for donation also. So she went out to the garage. When she got out to the garage, she discovered that her husband's tools were all over the place, and so she started to pick those up. Halfway through, she thought about his favorite project and decided that his birthday was coming up and she needed to go to the store to get a particular item for his birthday. So she goes to the store and she realizes that it's almost time to pick up the kids. So she goes and picks up the kids, feeds them, does bath time, bedtime, all that good stuff. She comes downstairs and she is exhausted. And then she looks at that silly old junk drawer and it's still hanging out in her kitchen and it's full of junk. She said, "This is why my house is never clean." So in that case, you can see the chain reaction. One thing leads to the next, which leads to the next. If you're going to do a chain reaction, I would advise you be very, very careful to make sure that you are drawing connections from one cause to one effect. One effect becomes the next cause. Make sure you're drawing those connections, because otherwise you end up with something along the lines of, I was cleaning the junk drawer the other day and I found a button, and the button led me to the laundry room, and that's how I ended up on the floor surrounded by photographs crying. We missed a lot of steps in there, and it's funny, but we missed a lot of steps. So if you're going to do a chain reaction, make sure you include all the steps. The final possibility for doing cause and effect is if you have many causes and many effects. Many causes and many effects. Now, there are two ways to organize an essay that covers many causes and many effects. The first possible way is if you talk about all the causes at once. Cause A, cause B, cause C. And then you talk about all the effects. Effect A, effect B, effect C. So in that case, you would only have two paragraphs. One paragraph dedicated to all the causes and one paragraph dedicated to all the effects. The other potential option would be to talk about cause A, effect A, cause B, effect B, cause C, and then effect C, and so on. So this would potential, if you have three causes and three effects, you would have three paragraphs. So either way, this is similar to the compare and contrast essay, in which the material wouldn't change, but rather just where do you want to put the focus? Do you want to focus first on the causes and then the effects? Or do you want to focus on this cause, this effect, this cause, this effect, this cause, this effect? One really great example, I think COVID is a great example of this. I think also there's potential for other big events like 9/11 and so on. My favorite one to talk about is actually pollution, because pollution is a big topic, but there are three forms of pollution that you could focus on. You could focus on air pollution, water pollution, and land pollution. And you would take, well, air pollution leads directly to smog. It chokes us up. It makes it hard to breathe. It can be bad for our forest, right? It's poisoning the air we breathe. Water pollution, you've all seen the commercial, I'm sure, with the poor little ducky that they had to wash with Dove soap or whatever that was. So water pollution immediately affects the water, the life, the animal life in the water, ducks, fish, sharks, and so on. But also the water supply, we use that, right? We live on that. So if we have water pollution, we devastate the environment and the ecosystem, and we devastate ourselves. Essentially, we poison ourselves. Land pollution, also, it looks bad, it feels bad, makes the place feel junky, hard to walk around, and it can cause illnesses. Before plumbing was invented, we were sick a lot. A lot of people had a lot of illness because there was feces and urine and things like that all over the ground, trash all over the place. It looked junky, it felt junky, and people got sick. Animals get sick, things like that. So if that's my case, then all my causes, air pollution, water pollution, and land pollution in the first paragraph, and then those effects in the second paragraph. Or here's everything about air pollution, here's everything about water pollution, and then here's everything about land pollution. Either way, you're still talking about the same thing. It's just where do you want to focus? Cause and effect can be a lot of fun, but organizing it efficiently makes it much easier for you to write and makes it much easier for your reader to read. Just like the other essays, I want to take a moment to talk about a thesis statement. It goes at the end of your introduction and you restate it at the top of your conclusion. What I do not want you to say is that there are many causes and effects to smoking a cigarette or to whatever your topic is. That's a really bad thesis statement because once again, I want you to tell me up front which causes and which effects are you going to be paying attention to. So in this case, if I'm going to use that example, let's see, smoking a cigarette can impact health. I don't know if I want to use social status, but you can probably come up with a better way to say that. At any rate, I put in smoking a cigarette can impact your health, financial wellness, and social status. You can probably find a better way to phrase that or to add to it. But at the very minimum, at the very least, I have health, financial wellness, and social status, social issues. And so those are going to be the topics of those 3 paragraphs that I would be talking about in that first example. I'm going to be talking about smoking a cigarette, and the effects of smoking a cigarette are health, money, and social issues. Ta-da! I have written my whole essay in a single sentence. Now all I have to do is fill in the blanks. Okay, what about health? What about financial wellness? What about social status? So a really tight, strong essay thesis statement does not have to be long. It does not have to be wordy. It just has to have your points so that you can map out the rest of your essay for your reader and tell them, here's what I'll be talking about today. We don't like to beat around the bush. Academics don't like surprises. All right, the final choice for your essay, you can write a definition essay, you can write a cause and effect essay, you can write a compare and contrast essay, or you can write a classification and division essay. So classification and division essays come in really handy. Let me see. I'm going to write it up here before I move on. Classification and division, or division. Could be and or, does not matter. Classification and division essays come in really handy. Believe it or not, we use them all the time. Have you ever looked up types of in Google? Types of anything. Types of flowers. Guess what? That's classification division. Types of energy. That's classification and division. Types of clouds. I'm just looking on the list here. That's classification and division. One of my favorites is parenting styles. Types of parenting styles. And when you type this in, look, there's 4 types in that one. 4 types there. This one has 5 types. You could say types of management styles. 10 types of management styles, 7 types of management styles, 4 types of management styles. Guess what, guys? Every single one of these is classification and division, because what you're doing is taking something that is a giant big group and you're breaking it down into classes or groups that are easy to identify and to understand and to work with. Okay. It could be something more tangible, types of vehicles. All right, types of, and that may be a really big topic, but types of vehicles, types of vehicle paint. Have you ever noticed vehicles usually come in just like 2 or 3 different kinds of colors? I don't know why, but you could talk about why. 3 car paint types and the pros and cons of each. That would be probably very much a classification and division type of article or blog or whatever that happens to be. So anytime you're talking about different types of things, here's a fun one that someone wrote about actually last year, and I thought it was a little bit funny, but I was told later that it might be a little bit mean and not nice, but it was types of Karens. So that may not be an essay you want to write. I've heard that since that is derogatory towards women and certain things like that, but you can do types of workouts, types of, just types of anything. And that ends up being a classification division type of essay, right? Think about the first time you probably encountered types of or classification division was probably in classifying and dividing animals. Even that's important, but that may be too big for this particular essay. I'll give you some more examples in just a moment. For now, I want to go back to our Blackboard. I want to show you a video, classification, essay, or paragraph.
Goodbye and the spam call.
I always hit
Hello
ads.
to a phone plan with built-in spam.
There we go.
Classification is when you take a topic and divide it into categories to perhaps try to help the reader understand it more clearly, to compare, to show preference, or possibly to help the reader make a decision. Now, the first step in classification is when you take your topic, you have to decide on a basis for your classification. So if your topic were, for example, cell phone users, you would have to decide how are you going to divide cell phone users into different categories. Now, you have unlimited options to choose from, but you want to make sure that you're choosing something interesting and not something obvious. So you want to avoid classifications based on things like age or gender. Okay, so 3 bases for classification that I have come up with here are frequency of use, or how frequently they use their cell phones, dependence, how reliant or dependent they are on their cell phones, or purpose, meaning why they have their cell phone or how they use it. So once you've brainstormed, you can choose one basis for classification, and then it's time to divide your subject into categories. So I've decided to go with dependence. So when you're dividing cell phone users based on their dependence, I've come up with 3 categories: the addicted user, the moderately dependent cell phone user, and the non-dependent cell phone user. Now you want to make sure that you have, I would say, at least 3 classes to make your paragraph or essay as interesting as possible. So once you've decided on your categories, it's now important to explain them, and in some cases to define them. So it may be useful for you to watch the video on definition before continuing on with classification. Now you have to take each category and perhaps give examples. I said, addicted users can't stop. They feel compelled to use their cell phone and have difficulty sitting through a conversation without checking messages or texting their friends. Moderately dependent users are people who need their cell phones for contact numbers or for business, but have no problems putting their cell phone away or turning it off. If their cell phones are left at home, they're irritated, but their lives will not end. And the third category is non-dependent users, people who use their phone for emergencies, but may often forget to turn their phones on or choose to not answer their phone at all. So once you've decided on the categories and you have some details, you want to make sure that you have a strong topic sentence if you're writing a paragraph, So my example topic sentence is, cell phone users can be divided into 3 categories based on their dependence. Naturally, if you're writing a full essay to classify this subject, you want your thesis statement to be more narrow, more specified. Okay, so I have written as my thesis statement, all cell phone users can be grouped into 3 classes based on their dependence: the addicted, the moderately dependent, and the non-dependent user. If you are writing an essay on classification, you can use the basic essay structure that we've gone over in the video on essay structure. The key for good classification, as I've said, is to be interesting, to avoid the obvious, and to make sure that you have a purpose for the classification. Ask yourself, what is the point of putting this subject into categories? So for some practice of classification, follow the link at the end of this video.
Okay, I like that video too. All right, so he talks about classification and division essays, and he makes some really important points. Again, he talks about being interesting. Yep, I can spell. Have a point. We're not just separating things up just for the sake of separating them. Have a good point and a good reason why. And avoid the obvious. I also really liked that he gave us a great setup for a thesis statement. And he said it's really important to determine a basis of classification. The example he gave us was cell phone users. Cell phone users, lowercase, can be divided into 3 categories based on dependence. He used a colon because he's about to list, and that's appropriate use of a colon. And he said they are the addicted user, the moderate dependent user, and the non-dependent user. So what he did here, and I think this is a brilliant way to set up your thesis statement, was that first he told us his topic, which is cell phone users. He gave us how many categories he'll be using in this particular essay. He told us how he separated up those categories, which he said based on dependence. That's the basis of classification. And then he told us the categories. And those categories, just like in the other essays we've talked about, become the topics of those body paragraphs. So, you have topic, number, basis, classification. Whoop. Fix that. And the categories. Okay, so that is a great thesis statement, and I hope you model yours exactly the same way. Now let's talk for a moment about this tricky basis of classification and how important it is. Now, I'll tell you guys, here's an interesting one. Okay, let's talk about movies. Okay, what are some ways that you can split up movies? Well, you can split them up according to genre. So in the genre, you would have horror, fantasy, romance, comedy, thriller, and so on and so forth. You have a lot of different genres. You could also split up movies based on rating, right? You'd have G, PG, PG-13, R, X, XXX, whatever. Let's not talk about that one. But you could base them on rating. You could also split up movies based on how they're filmed. Is it a cartoon? Is it anime? Is it documentary? Is it traditional filmography or movieography or whatever? So you can do all of those. And have you ever noticed that, let's see, what are those sitcoms? Sitcoms are filmed in a very different way than movies, for example. So that in itself is a difference that you can talk about in your essay. Now, how confusing would it be if you start off your essay talking about genre, horror, fantasy, romance, comedy, thriller, and then about halfway through, you start talking about ratings? That would be very, very confusing for your reader. So, determining the basis of classification, which is these, is super important up front. You need to decide up front before you start writing, okay, I'm going to be talking about movies. How am I going to split up the movies that I want to talk about? Am I going to look at genre, rating, or how they're filmed? You can do this with a number of things. Let's see. One of the ones I like to talk about, what was it? I used to work, okay, here's a fun one. I used to work at Walmart. Okay. I used to work at Walmart a long time ago. I was overnight cashier. I was a big fan of people watching. And if you've ever seen the people of Walmart, like you can, oh my goodness, I'm terrified I'm going to end up on that website. Don't look, okay? But they talk about primarily how people dress when they go to Walmart. Some people wear swimsuits. Some people wear pajamas. Some people wear tight shorts or the see-through, what are they, the leggings? And they show their behinds or things like that. They're very scantily clad. Some people wear prom dresses. Some people wear business attire to Walmart. And some people like me are just somewhat casual when they go to Walmart, things like that. So you can talk all night about how people dress at Walmart. You could talk about maybe how people behave at Walmart. You have pranksters. You have people who just want to see the manager. They're angry. You have people who are in a hurry. You have people who are leisurely shopping. So they're slow pokies. You have couponers, right? I don't know if that's actually a word. Coupon folks, couponers. I don't know. We'll leave it like that for now. But you have people and how they behave at Walmart. I even had someone at one point who talked about the different crimes that can be committed at Walmart. So, for example, there's straight up theft. I saw this happen, guys. I saw one guy try to walk out of Walmart with a TV under his t-shirt. It happened. So you have theft, you have check fraud, you have, what's it called when you deface property, or you, oh goodness, what is it? I'm not going to remember it right now for the life of me because I'm trying to think of it. Destruction, property. We'll just put that down. You guys probably know the word and are yelling it at your computer right now. I'm so sorry. But that's one potential crime at Walmart. And you have some pranks that cause some crimes at Walmart. I had a kid that built a toilet paper wall in the back of the store, and as I walked by, he jumped out and said, "Surprise!" and it scared me to death. I mean, that's not a crime, but it scared me anyway. We also had, I worked overnight at Walmart, and this was the middle of February, not even close to Halloween. About 3 a.m. in the morning, Darth Vader came strolling through the doors, and I watched him walk in. I was like, okay, well, hey, Darth, how you doing? But the problem was that he walked immediately to the sporting goods section and started looking for a gun. And at that point, we all went on lockdown and hid in the back room until the police could come and check the guy out. I think it ended up being fine. I have no idea, but sure scared us. So apparently, if you walk into Walmart at 3 a.m. in February dressed as Darth Vader and look for a gun, the police get called. So lots of different ways to do. So think about this. If we go halfway through our essay and we're talking about how people behave at Walmart, and then all of a sudden we switch and we start talking about how people dress at Walmart, wouldn't that be really confusing? So these basis of classification, that's what these are right here. The basis of classification becomes really, really important to determine up front. So decide up front, are we going to talk about the crimes of Walmart? Are we going to talk about how people behave in Walmart? Or are we going to classify our people in Walmart by how they dress? Or are we going to talk about movies? Are we going to separate them by genre, by rating, or by how they're filmed? We could do any of them or all of them. But that would be 3 different essays, or actually in this case, 6 different potential essays right there. At any rate, it's important to go ahead and define it ahead of time, and that helps your audience, your reader, to follow along with what you're doing. Again, don't tell me something along the lines of people in Walmart can be, well, I messed that all up. We'll just see. Hang on. Let me fix this. Fix it. So we want to avoid saying something like people of, let me fix this first. There we go. Don't tell me many people of Walmart can be separated into many categories. Again, I want you to tell me up front what we're going to be talking about in this particular essay. So, okay, so sorry, that took me a moment to type. So you could potentially say something along the lines of people in Walmart can be separated into 5 categories based on how they dress. Give me a colon and tell me what categories you'll be talking about in this particular essay. That's just one way to do this. And that makes it really easy for me to tell, okay, well, the first paragraph is going to be all about swimwear. Second paragraph about pajamas, third paragraph shorts and leggings, fourth paragraph about prom, and fifth paragraph about business wear. Now, again, I want to emphasize this right here. Be interesting, have a point, and avoid the obvious. If we're going to talk about how people dress when they go to Walmart, what might be a point? What point might you be making if you're going to talk about how people are dressing at Walmart? Well, it might be to raise awareness and have people realize that when you go to Walmart, you're in the public eye. Some people forget that. Avoid the obvious also. For example, writing an essay about the ratings of movies would be really obvious and probably not that interesting. That's a pretty obvious one that's been done time and time again. So has genre. Those have been done many, many times. So unless you're arguing perhaps that PG-13 should be changed to R and it should go away as PG-13, maybe you're arguing that we need to add another rating in there somewhere. Maybe I need one to include what's the new CoComelon? Like I need a pre-K rating so that I can include movies about CoComelon and Blippi and all these other things that my toddler watches. So maybe you're arguing that we need to introduce a new rating. Well, that would be interesting and that would have a point. But unless you're doing that, then you probably want to avoid something really obvious like ratings. Another one really obvious for Walmart, think about, we could talk about the age of people who are shopping in Walmart, but that would be really obvious and kind of boring, to be honest. After all, it's for all ages, right? For the most part. You have everybody in there, ranging from the crying children all the way up to the elderly folks who want to run you over with their buggy. So I don't mean offense to anybody, just trying to make a joke. But at any rate, be interesting, have a point, avoid the obvious. All right, I think that is everything that I wanted to talk about in this particular video. If after watching both videos you are still confused or you don't have a good idea of what kind of essay you want to do or what topic you may want to cover, by all means, please reach out to me. Again, my email is hfitch@kilgore.edu. I'll write it on the screen for you. hfitch@kilgore.edu, or use Remind to text me, and I will get back to you and give you some pointers. I may even call you on the phone with Remind. I don't have to have your phone number. I just call you with Remind, and it's really easy. I do want to encourage you to avoid the messenger system that is in Blackboard. I know that's available. Some people have been using it. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't get those messages quickly. If you want a quick response, the best way to get a hold of me actually is my email or Remind, because and that would be to directly go to your email and compose a new email to hfitch@kilgore, as opposed to going through Blackboard. I get the Blackboard messages, but I get them slowly. So it's much faster if you email me directly or use Remind. I think that's everything. Again, comments, questions, concerns, anything at all, please let me know. In the video next week, I'll be talking much more about how these essays need to look physically on the page, how to do MLA format, and I'll also remind you about tutoring. Don't forget to complete the assignments that are on the checklist for this week. Good luck, and if you have questions, let me know.